Alrighty, so we are going to be talking about what are the best characters you should be saving for in Honkai Star Rail. Now, a lot of people ask this question because most of the time people are just like, okay, new DPS comes out, gotta summon for the new DPS. Why would I summon for the rerun? They're older DPS, they're probably gonna age faster and do less damage, right? And that's a fair assumption most of the time, right? But some people just aren't a big fan of the unit, or maybe they don't like the path they're at, whatever it may be. They don't want to summon, so they want to know about the reruns. Hence, the point of this video, right? Now, before we get into the video, I just want to say that we do not have the info for Tingyun and Sunday yet. They have not announced the live stream for it, which is where they show what the units do. So this will be taken into account that their info isn't out. So if, let's say, you know, picking on Jingyun, let's just say a unit makes Jingyun the best unit in the game. Obviously, we're not going to rate him as you need them because we don't know that yet, right? It's not official information. We don't know. So if I rate a unit a little low and you're like, oh, well, I'm watching this and we're in 3.2 and we have 7-star Arlen, and 7-star Arlen actually makes Blade the best DPS in the game, then like obviously like how am I supposed to know that, right? Regardless of that, let's jump into the video. Also, these are just my opinions. If you disagree with them, good on you, bro. Hey, as long as you're respectful about it, I don't really care. But this is just my opinion. This is not factual. I still think this is going to be a pretty good representation of where they stand on the list. So first things first, Zele, we're going to put good. She's a decent DPS, but by no means the absolute best. A solid character. I feel like if your character is in good or lower, if you aren't a fan of the character, you probably are safe not summoning for them unless you really need them for a specific task. We'll go over that when we get to it, right? Jingyun, I love him. He's so cool, but he just does not have a place in the meta right now. Pure Friction, he's good, but I mean, he takes a lot to work, right? Silverwolf, she'll be in good. She is falling off a bit though, and by a bit I mean kind of a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few patches she actually drops down even lower, but as of right now I do think she is good, mostly for like Apocalyptic Shadow and some MOC cases. People are gonna hate me for this. I think Locha is a full-on skip. All bro does is provide healing. At this point, your healer has to be contributing to the team to really mean something, right? These cases are Huohu, who gives energy and attack. I almost said Ronbei. Linksha, who's doing damage and buffing break. Fushuan is giving crit rate, right? Venturing is giving crit damage and then being a okay sub DPS as well. There's just so many sustainers that are just doing a lot more than healing, and unfortunately Loach is just not really doing all that much. So I think that he is in a skip tier. Unless you're the biggest Locha fan, I highly recommend just ignoring him and just not summoning. Also, keep in mind as well, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video, this is assuming you're going for your first copy of the unit and not going for like E6 or whatnot, right? Obviously, a lot of these change at E6, so you do have to keep that in mind. But still, Luocha, he's going to give a big thumbs down, wah, wah, right? Now, Blade's damage is not, I almost put him in skip, sorry, no. Blade's damage is also not really anything too crazy. I feel like he could get a buff that would push him up to good at most, but he just really doesn't have it, which is really sad because Blade is actually a very cool character, and I almost summoned on him. I was going to summon on his rerun, but then eventually he started falling off, and I was like gravitating away from summoning on him personally. But Blade just does not have all the damage at the moment. Not saying he can't cook, but at the moment it's like, do you really want to use the currency on Blade when he's pretty much on his way out? Next up is Kafka. Kafka will probably almost always be high value until we get a outright replacement, just because she is a dot enabler. Now, dot is not in a great point of its lifespan at the moment, but she still is the whole deciding factor of if dot can even be called a team. Without Kafka, dot is pretty much just there, I guess. It just isn't really good, right? So Kafka will pretty much always be high value because of that, even if she is not meta at the moment. Next up is good old Daniel Hang, and he's going to be sitting in good. Unfortunately, his damage is not all that it used to be, and pretty much gotten absolutely no love. He's gotten Sparkle, which is nice, but nowhere anywhere near as good as she needs to be to keep him up there with the heavy hitters. Next up is Fushuan, really good tank, provides damage reduction. Almost said shields. She doesn't provide a shield, but she has preservation. That makes sense for you. She provides damage reduction, crit rate, and she can even heal with her ult. A pretty good sustainer, but not the best, but still an extremely good one. She will pretty much make you immortal through most content, so very good unit. Next up, we have Jinglu. Unfortunately, I love Jinglu so much, but pretty much the same boat as Donhang. Very good DPS back in the day. Damage fell off a little bit, got absolutely no love. She doesn't really have any units suited for her. Obviously, characters like Robin, who are universal buffs for every character, did help in a sense, but nothing catered towards Jinglu in specific, like how Sparkle is with Donhang, and it just hurt her, right? DPS falling off. I mean, hey, it's the same old song and dance, right? Now, Topaz. Topaz is a high value character. While you can use March or Moze to fulfill her role, she still is going to be better than them. Absolutely great character. And if you're one of the people who get really lazy with farming chests, her over, I can speak English. Her oh my god, I'm forgetting the word. Just over when you're running around the map. I want to say like overworld. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Dear Lord. Anyway, her presence on the map, running around with Numby and then finding chests, is very, very nice. Obviously, you could probably just look up like an interactive map and do the same thing. For those of you who are lazy, that is a buff to the character, which surprisingly, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of people actually summon for her for that reason, which I find very funny. But I mean, hey, it's not a bad pull just because she's actually just really good follow up. So it works out. If it was like Luocha who did it, I'd be like, yo, you might have wasted your summons. But I mean, hey, it is what it is, right? Next up is Huohuo. High value, very good healer, provides energy for the team, provides attack for the team. I don't really need to say too much else, right? Argenti is a pretty good character. I've seen him cook in a variety of game modes. Obviously, he's going to be a pure fiction bot, and he does it pretty damn well. If you're struggling in pure fiction, Argenti is a good pickup. Otherwise, if you don't really need him and aren't a huge fan of him, there's really no reason for him, but he's still good enough to land himself in good and not with the other two. Finally, we have our first you need them. That is Ruanmei. Ruanmei has the only weakness break efficiency buff in the game. And I'm telling you right now, trying to run two teams that want that buff is so rough, man. We really need like maybe even a 4-star version that just buffs it by a little bit. More than likely, they're going to make that a 5-star. So get your wallets out. But as of right now, being the only weakness break efficiency character, especially with a bunch of break units who want to break as fast as possible, is very good. She also provides damage buffs and speed and all that good stuff. And the best part about it is AoE, so it's not even just one character. You get a whole team-wide buff with it. Insanely good character. I highly recommend saving for her if you don't have her, which apparently there's a lot of you, because every time I make a budget team video thinking, oh, surely most people have the best supports in the game, because that's what's pretty much like the most must summon units in the game are. People are like, oh, I don't have Robin or Rune, man. I'm like, well, who are you summoning for? Who are you summoning for? Please tell me, damn. Anyway, enough of that. Next up is Dr. Ratio. Now, Dr. Ratio was free at one point. Unfortunately, he hasn't gotten a rerun, which is kind of weird, I'm not going to lie, but still a high value unit. Dr. Ratio's follow-up damage is pretty damn good, and it was the best in the game up until Fade Shadow dropped, but that doesn't mean he's bad at all. Still an absolutely disgustingly broken unit. I do think his damage will age out, I wouldn't say pretty soon, but you know, if we get around to like 3.5 and he's still considered a excellent DPS, I would be pretty surprised. But as it stands right now, still a really good follow-up. If you aren't a fan of Fei Zhao, he's pretty much just the second best unit for it, so highly recommend grabbing him if you like him. Next up is Black Swan. Now, this one is going to probably be the most controversial one, at least in my eyes, and I'm putting her in good. Now, the reason for this is because you can use her as a support because she has defense res, right? Or defense res lower, sorry. And you can use her with dot teams. Dot isn't doing the best at the moment, and the reason I have Kafka higher is because Kafka is like the dot enabler, right? Black Swan, if they drop a new dot unit, could easily be replaced, right? Your dot team could be Kafka, you know, let's just say Ruin May support or Robin support, whoever you run, a sustain unit, and then your other slot is Black Swan. Now, if a new Nihility character comes out and you still want to run a support with them, the only logical thing to replace is going to be Black Swan herself, because you're not getting rid of Kafka because of how good her kit is for dot, and you don't want to run sustainless because most people just don't like running sustainless, and depending on how strong your team is, you actually just won't be able to beat anything if you don't have a healer or shielder on the team. So unfortunately, Black Swan is going to be the one replaced, right? Which is going to hurt her a little bit, right? This is why DPSs are always a bit lower on the you need them list, mostly because they get replaced before the supports do. But yeah, otherwise she's still a very, very good unit, but you know, not being on the downfall, there's still better supports, especially with good old, oh my god, I always forget his name. Zhao Q, there we go. Especially with him coming out for like Akron teams, if you're not using Payload or whatnot, or just debuffs in general, he kind of is just a bit better, so that does hurt her a little bit. But enough about him. Black Swan, still a decent unit, right? Next up is Sparkle. I think she is in the good tier. I know. High value. Why is she not there? I personally think Sparkle isn't all that. Her action advance is only 50%, and then she gives you skill points, which is good because it's skill points, but also not a lot of units are just spamming skill points up the wazoo like that anymore. Most of the time, you know, there could be an instance where I have to normal attack instead of skill with this unit, but I don't know. I don't find myself in that situation that much unless I'm running a super budget team. Most of the teams that I run, which I like running pretty much every single team, doesn't really feed for skill points that much, so it does hurt her value. Once we get more units like Donhang, I see her value going up a bit more, but not being a 100% action value. Most of the time, people are going to run Bronya with, like, you know, Fei Zhao or Boot Hill, and not Sparkle just because 50%. Now, if it was 100%, I would definitely have her at high value, but because it's only 50%, I'm going to have to lower to her to just good. Next up is Acheron. Acheron is an insane DPS, however, she has gone down a little bit in value. She isn't one-shotting everything like she used to. Not saying she isn't absolutely broken. She is, but she isn't the instant delete button like she was on her release, which is completely fine. I don't think I'd ever put a you need them tier unit. I'm saying that wrong. I wouldn't put a DPS in the you need them tier. There we go. I don't know why I was trying to word that so weirdly. Anyway, yeah. Shout out to my headphones actually cutting out because they're dying. Anyway, I don't think I put a DPS in you need them, so unfortunately Acheron is going to be high. I just realized it says height value. Anyway, I just know someone saw it said height value and was like, is this a tier list on their height? Anyway, Acheron is still an incredibly good DPS. She is a bit niche in the sense of you need Nihility units with her, but we have such good Nihility units and even such good 4-star Nihility units that should be too much of an issue. Then we have Venturing. I personally think he's the best DPS, or sorry, best sustain, just because he has DPS capabilities. He has, you know, pretty much an immortal sustain. Absolutely broken character. Highly recommend you get him if you don't have a sustain. If you're still using Natasha and Lynx, I highly recommend please get a good sustain. And if you're going to get a sustain, might as well get one of the best ones. Next up is Robin, and wow, oh wow, we got 2 back-to-backs. You need them. Robin is the best support in the game, and if she's not number 1 on the, you know, you need them, the number 1 character to get in the game, she's definitely number 2. Right? Now, number 1 could probably be Adventuring or Lynxia, just because you need to stay alive and you need someone buffing your characters to do more damage in this game. So Robin and a sustain is pretty much 1 and 2, right? A lot of people will say she's number 1. Personally, I think she's number 2 because I value sustains a bit higher than the supports, but it's another topic for another day. Robin is still a must summon character. Then for high value, we're actually going to rank Boot Hill and Firefly at the same time. These are the break DPSs. Insanely insane. Actually, we'll rank Rappa as well, because we can say this for all 3 of them, right? All 3 of these units are insanely busted because we are still in the break honeymoon. Everything is weak to break. The units are, or not the units, the enemies are designed around the units, right? The units are insanely broken. Boot Hill is probably the weakest just because he's single target, and there's been a lot of AoE stuff with Pure Fiction. Apocalyptic Shadow, kinda, but he still absolutely shreds it. And then MOC having multiple enemies could just be a bit annoying for Boothill. Not saying it makes him useless, but just because Rappa and Firefly have AoEs makes them very slightly better. When it comes to single target content, Boothill will absolutely just destroy them, right? So that is a plus for him. So it kind of equals out in the end, right? Anyway, break meta is, you know, the name of the game at the moment. So no shocker that these 3 units are going to be very high valued. Next up, we have Jade, who is going to be in good tier. Jade is pretty much just same thing as Argenti, Pure Fiction bot. Somewhat okay other places. She has a few niche uses with like Blade and stuff, but otherwise, just a Pure Fiction bot. She's going to be in good. She'll probably have more value later on, but at the moment, she doesn't really have a absolute place that you definitely need her for, so she's going to be in good. Then Yunli, insanely good DPS. She is a counter unit, meaning every time you get hit, she counters, does a bunch of damage. And then she has a taunt. Very, very cool unit, very high damage. Not much else to say. Then we have Jiao Q, insanely good debuffer. Pretty much 5-star Pela. I'm shocked that more people don't have him. I personally skipped him because I'm not a huge fan of his design, and I was saving for other characters, but definitely going to grab him on the rerun. Not much else to say about that as well, right? Then we have Fei Zhao, insanely good DPS. In fact, the best DPS in the game. Her attacks just absolutely obliterate. You attack over and over and over and over and over until the enemy just is dead, right? Dead like 10 times over, right? Absolutely great DPS. The only reason I don't have her and you need them is because she is a DPS. And more than likely what will happen is when we roll around to like 3.0 or 3.1, the new best DPS will come out, which is always very fun to witness, right? Remember when Akron was the best DPS in the game? Yeah, I remember that. Now it's Fei Zhao. Remember when Danheng was the best DPS in the game? Yeah. Now it's not Danheng. Remember when Jingli was the best DPS in the game? Yeah. Remember when... yeah, you get the point, right? Then, last but not least, is good old Linxia, who's actually going to be in You Need Them. She is the healer and the DPS all in the same team, and she's a break unit, which, you know, break meta is going crazy right now, so she's going to get extra points for that. Plus, she has emergency heals, which is so insanely valuable. If a unit is getting hit and you're like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to heal them in time with my healer, guess what? Units low on HP, she does a follow-up attack that heals them, cleanses them of debuffs, and does damage. And hey, if you're running the Super Break team, it does quite a bit of damage at that. So I feel like her and Aventurine are comparable, so they are going to be put up in the same tier. Wow, big shocker. The 2 best supports in the game, the 2 best sustains in the game are You Need Them. And then pretty much at that point, it's just pick whatever, you know, DPS you want or what team you want. If you want like follow-up, whatnot, if you want break, you want a normal crit rate, crit damage, DPS, pick your poison and go absolutely crazy because you have everything sorted out for you. But then that's going to be it for the video. Let me know what you guys think of the list. You think it's dog shit, you think it's good, you think it's okay. What units do you think are a must pull for savers? And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.